Hi, we welcome you all to our presentation for our GLI 661 course. This is the third assignment and it's a continuation from the case we covered during our last assignment. The question which we will be covering is how can knowledge management be more inclusive in the Chignecto Wildlife KM, which will be subdivided into 5 sub-questions being covered by me and my other group mates. So let's start. For the first question which I will be covering, it deals with how KM can be more inclusive in nature, and for this we recommend that it should be realized that KM is not only limited to the scope of the researcher, and it should encompass all the other stakeholders as well, such as locals, indigenous people, provincial government, as well as the federal government. For effective knowledge sharing, we also believe that respect towards all the groups should be exhibited and one group shouldn't be prioritized over the other. And for knowledge sharing platforms, it should be enabled and also initiated, and it can be done so through qualitative means such as workshops, seminars, open-ended discussion, interviews, surveys, and likewise. Other important factor which should be exhibited is trust, which needs to be shown and respected across various groups possessing both traditional and scientific means of tacit knowledge. And this trust and respect can be earned over time through the collaboration between experts coming from all stakeholder groups, which will improve the knowledge sharing experience among the various groups, which will be over time attract more participation in the generation and preservation of valuable tacit knowledge. That is all from my part. Thank you.
First of all, the Chignecto community can learn by understanding the importance of conservation planning and engaging local people in the process. They can connect with the senior technology holders who have experience of other communities. Also, they can study the history of the area and the people who have lived there, such as indigenous people with a strong tacit knowledge of wildlife. They can learn from the experiences of other communities like local hunters, farmers who have faced similar challenges. They can facilitate the sharing of participants' views, thoughts, and opinions on the mapped data through workshops. Documents can also help to raise awareness of the local species risk in the past. Also, the community can learn by studying the mistakes that have been made and by learning from the successes of a previous generation. Knowledge management can help support innovation through workshops by providing a focus on the value of technology and helping to create an environment where technology can be created and shared. KM could also provide other activities where people can exchange ideas for technology sharing. The community can integrate both explicit and technology, which make it more available and accessible. They can organize new and existing knowledge by using skills and tools and encouraging creativity and innovation process. Overall, by understanding the importance of KM, the community can innovate and create new ways to support and engage local people in conservation initiatives.
Next, in respect of trust among the community, we believe that overall there is a basic level of trust because community members from both provinces are willing to engage into the interviews and share their tacit knowledge with the researchers. However, this kind of trust is not sufficient. The first evidence being no indigenous people participated in the interview, despite the fact that researchers have made significant efforts to include them. This might be because researchers have not received enough trust from the indigenous people. The inclusion of these people is very important, so we recommend the community to respect their culture and find a culturally appropriate way to include them in the conversation and decision-making process. Besides, only 10 people in total participated in the 2 mapping workshops after the interview, while the researchers actually invited 20 of them. This means that only half of the people accepted to keep participating in the KM process. This again indicates that there's not enough trust within the community, as a lot of people are unwilling to further share their knowledge. In addition, researchers and local authority have demonstrated a desire to validate local tacit knowledge using science, or at least compare them with explicit scientific knowledge. This kind of attempt itself will cause distrust from local knowledge holders. We know that trust is extremely important to build consensus within and between different groups, so a higher level of trust is needed for knowledge to be shared and agreed on in this community.
Explicit knowledge is being preserved by the local community, researchers, provincial authorities, and federal government, but the article does not fully discuss in what forms they are being preserved, followed by what standards, ethics, or conventions. Most assessments of wildlife habitat and connectivity have been based on computer-based models, and those models are often at larger provincial and eco-regional scales. Wildlife monitoring and management by provincial government agencies is not coordinated across Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and the empirical wildlife data that do exist remain provincially specific and not readily accessible or compatible for applications across the Chignecto Isthmus region. Besides, regional efforts to mobilize knowledge have largely focused on natural science and nature conservation as of 2020. But on the other hand, they are doing well in digitize, analyze, and compile local individuals' data into thematic series of maps, those documents becoming part of the explicit knowledge that could be preserved and passed on in the future. Here are our recommendations. First, establish coordinating departments and agencies between provinces. Second, input and update a local empirical wildlife data, establish a dedicated database, and keep it updated and maintained. Third, updated local data system to become accessible and compatible with local softwares and systems. And fourth, provide more financial support and other resources for field research and knowledge preservation.
For the last question, knowledge governance is an important framework that needs to be in place, and we believe it should be implemented at 3 levels, that is, individual, group, and community levels, for both explicit and tacit knowledge, and at each step of the CAM process lifecycle, including the creation, sharing, and the reuse of knowledge. In addition, knowledge governance requires an integration of both formal and informal mechanisms in order to be effective. There needs to be some form of authority, leadership, and accountability in order to make progress towards community goals. Formal leadership and institutionalizing mechanisms can help the community routinize behavior and decision-making. However, a balance must be kept between formal and informal governance. Introducing too much formality may kill the effective knowledge sharing. This is because people are not voluntary anymore to share their knowledge, which changes the nature of knowledge sharing networks. Therefore, we recommend the community to shift their balance towards informal governance and integrating mechanisms that focuses on building an inclusive culture where everyone is willing to share. For example, to provide local people with opportunities for knowledge networking in both physical and virtual space, and to help them collaborate and make sure they have a positive view on collaboration. Also building trust among the community members. This is the end of our presentation, and thank you for your attention.